Hey, guess what? It's time for a new episode of Worlds Asunder.
Those guys too. Oh no, their boss is even more powerful than they were. I guess we gotta do some more training so that we can beat those guys. Like, that is the heart of progression fantasy right there.
And for the record, they do fight God. They reach the point where they fight God. It's hard. It is the ultimate progression fantasy.
As storytellers, we want to capture the hearts, minds, and imaginations of our readers, mainly through our expertly crafted worlds.
Creating new worlds in any genre might seem like a daunting task, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel for every story.
Welcome, weary writers, to Worlds Asunder, a world-building and writer's life podcast.
My co-host is David Shadoin, better known as Shady. It's not just a descriptor, it's also his moniker.
And she's H.Y. Grigger, or you can call her Haley, your friendly post-apocalyptic wasteland elf.
Together, we've got enough published to fill a small shelf, but why should you listen to us? Because we called in some favors.
Every other week, we bring you the best and brightest to give you the tips and tricks on world building and character building like the pros. So, open up your ear holes.
Get out your pen and paper.
And get ready for us to tear Worlds Asunder. And this is part 3 of Gotta Get Stronger, the finale episode with the Stovalls. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
So now I'm going to poke because I want Shami to go on a rant. We were just talking about Assassin's Creed before we came on air and started recording. And there were some repetition things that you had issues with in the Assassin's Creed franchise. How you felt like every storyline ultimately was, oh, we're fighting the Templars and we have to find the thing again. Why, to you, is that different from like the, oh no, we've got the Saiyans and then the Super Saiyans and then that? Where's that delineate for you?
Well, so it delineates in two places. One, technically, Dragon Ball Z Progression Fantasy is ever escalating fights, the series. Okay. So we are going over the top. Like the first guys who showed up, they could explode a city. Oh shit. The next guys who show up, they can explode a continent. You're like, jeez. And then the next guy who shows up, he can destroy a whole planet, you guys. And you're like, oh my God, like, what's going to happen next? And sure enough, the next motherfucker can destroy the universe. So we got to get that guy for surezies. And that level of escalation gets my blood pumping, where I'm like, oh shit, they've never fought anything like this. And in Assassin's Creed, it's the same motherfucking thing every single time. It's not like we go into the next game and Desmond has remembered every single one of his awesome powers, and now when he goes into a different time frame, he's learning even more awesome powers, and now he can kill 3 guys with one shuriken to all 3 of their heads. You know what I'm saying? And exploding them all. It's almost the reverse, where he reverts back to, he can't remember jack shit, now we have to learn all the basic stuff over again. That kind of repetition angers me, because I feel like it's a regression, right? Like he's regressed, and now we just have to learn the exact same basics all over again, and I'm not happy for that. Secondly,
not happy is one way to put that.
Yeah. So firstly, it's the ever escalating that I like. It gets my blood pumping. Secondly, it's usually the righteousness of what happens. So in a progression fantasy, most of the time, I want to say like 90% of the time, but there's like 10% of the time where the main character is just a psychopath. And sometimes that has an audience too, but 90% of the time, the main character is a good guy who gets powers to defeat bad guys who are genuinely bad, and you want to see them go down. So, in the very first books, it's like he's getting bullied. He's being bullied by all these kids who are just bullies, and they're pushing him and they're punking him. And then when he gets his first little bit of power, he takes down those bullies. Because take that, bullies. And you're like, okay, so that's fun, because I wanted to see the bullies get punched. And having like a very clear and obvious villain that just needs a throat punching is very fun and escapist, because I know that guy needs to just be taken down. And sometimes in Assassin's Creed, again, for maybe their storytelling purposes, they like to play to switcheroo. Like, the Knights Templar are bad, but maybe some of the Knights Templar aren't bad. Maybe the people who've got you in the stupid machine, the Animist or whatever the hell it's called, maybe they're the bad ones. You never fucking know. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe you're secretly the bad guy, huh? You're assassinating everybody. And sometimes I don't enjoy narratives like that because I do just want to see the bad guys get beaten. And I don't like having a storyline that's constantly weaving around who is the bad guy, who's the good guy. It's all morally gray. And I'm like, morally gray storylines can be fun. I'm not saying that I don't like them. It's just for for escapist fantasy, for stuff that I would just read to feel better, I want to know exactly who the bad guy is, and I want the bad guy to be defeated immediately. Or not immediately, but eventually I want him to be thoroughly defeated.
So you kind of hit on some of it, a little bit of like the plot devices, and we've talked a little bit of some of the tropes in the different genres, but like how important is it for writers getting into both LitRPG and progression fantasy to hit these tropes, and if and when can they be ignored or maybe twisted?
I think it's sort of 50-50, and once again, I think the broader you go, the less important it is. I think Shami has a lot more room to maneuver than, for example, I do. LitRPG has a couple subgenres. The tropes are very, very important. They want you to write the same story with a different coat of paint. Okay, and I'm not complaining about that. Again, I was so addicted to Dungeon Core, it's mind-blowing. Okay, I spent like 6 months probably where I was just harassing people. I would fantasize at night about being a dungeon. Okay, that's how like fucking crazy. I'd lie in bed being like, man, what if I was a little crystal that could like shape things and make creatures and shit. Okay, so I'm not in any way, form, or manner talking smack. Okay, it is very formulaic, however, and they do expect you to conform to the formulas. Okay, and I could tell you what the formulas are for the majority of the subgenres. And after I had a quite a bit of success with my original Dungeon Core book, I got cocky and wrote my second series as sort of a hybrid between 3 of the series. Didn't really follow the tropes exactly, and that is to this day a wound on my soul for how badly it did. Okay, every other series I've written which conformed to the tropes of one of the areas that I've done with has had anywhere from a little bit of success to a lot of success. They all made money. They were all, good. To this day, they continued to make money. This last series that I'm talking about, the one where I tried to get all creative and thought I was just so cool, and I knew better than everybody because my first series was good, terrible. Apparently, that's actually a common thing. A lot of authors have one good series and think they know everything and then write something that's a complete boondoggle. But I leaned into it extra hard and in a genre which is very little tolerance for that, quite frankly. I know the rules for most of the stuff that I've read and I understand it. I have enough ability to like deconstruct it, but you basically are writing the same story within each given subgenre with a different coat of paint. It really is very hard, and there is very little tolerance for stepping outside of it to any significant degree. But it is a subgenre of a subgenre of a subgenre of a subgenre. I mean, you already went from like literature to fantasy, then you went from fantasy to progression fantasy, then you went from progression fantasy to lit RPG, then you went from lit RPG to dungeon core. I mean, you've already subcategoried yourself to the absolute tip. So if you're writing in that category, even being in that category, people only came here because they specifically know exactly what they want, and it is this one tiny thing. So I'm not blaming anybody. I think when you write where Shami writes, which is sort of a hybrid between traditional and progression fantasy for the most part, and occasionally going into like science fiction and whatever, she writes mostly in categories that are only 1 or 2 steps down from just the generic literature, whereas I tend to write in categories that are 4 or 5 steps down from the generic. So it really just depends on where you're writing. If you're going to label something as part of a 5-step down niche subgenre, you better well damn meet the requirements of that 5-step down niche subcategory. And I understand why people would be mad if you didn't, because you just stole $3 from them.
It's fair. It's fair. Shami, you got anything?
I guess I agree with John in the sense that you can stray a little bit depending on the subgenre in this genre, but there really are a few key things you can't stray too far from, because that's what defines the genre. Like I said, progression fantasy is about growing in power for some reason. The reason can be different, like it doesn't have to be the same in every book. Lyndon does want to save his little town, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not always the case. Sometimes people just want to get stronger because they are so low on the totem pole that their life is trash. And so they think if they get power, their life won't be trash, things like that. But the need to gain power and the, I guess, excitement in getting power, I don't think is something you could necessarily not have in a progression fantasy. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what makes it a progression fantasy. I think there are a lot of tropes and things that readers like to see, and readers will get super angry if you break them. One of them being main character is punked constantly. Like, main character gets to level 4, and then when he goes to fight another level 4 guy, that guy kicks his ass because the main character fucked up. Not a lot of people like that. People don't want to see you progress to a power stage and then get your ass handed because you were dumb. I do see a ton of comments of people just hating dumb main characters in general. And sometimes they just make that shit up. Like, if your main character makes a mistake, like it's a part of a story, people get very, very upset because they're like, why did he make such a stupid mistake? And it's mostly because mistakes are used for a style of regression. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't use all of his powers like he should have to beat this one guy. And if he had just used his powers like he should have won. And so people just generally don't like regression, no matter even if it's a plot reason, you know what I'm saying? Or even if it's a character flaw, people just don't like that. Whereas I think that in normal fantasy, that is accepted a lot more. Eddard Stark getting beheaded because he's just so noble, he refuses to change sides or lie. So he gets his head cut off. People were like, whoa, that's crazy, because that works in just normal fantasy. But if that happened in a progression fantasy, my God, everybody would be upset. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not acceptable at all. So yeah, I think there are some tropes you can't break for any reason, but you can do a lot with the hows and the whys and the whos and why we're doing this or what's going on. You know what I'm saying? So
progression, the more that I learn about it, the more I learn that it's not just about world building and like power mechanics. There's a lot of different character expectations than there are in other genres, kind of like what you were talking about. So that's definitely been a learning curve for me, because your character can't make mistakes in the same way. Or, I love the way that you put it, like regressing. Um, and that is one of the things that I hate the most when I'm reading a book and people talk about those moments. They're like, throw the book across the room, or like one sentence differently in this conversation, and they never would have had the fight, or like there would never be that huge misunderstanding because all they had to do was phrase something differently. Um, and so it makes a lot of sense to me that that is part of what makes it so popular.
So, speaking of, you guys both kind of touched on it already, but what is the biggest mistake you see people make when trying to break into these genres?
Not making the main character cool enough or strong enough. I feel like I see that as a complaint the most often, where people are like, I really hated this main character. So a lot about progression fantasy is following a main character and seeing him or her rise up in power. I know some people have been like, you can't have a lady face in the main seat. It's always got to be a man face. But I've seen female led progression fantasies do amazingly. But the main character is always a badass. Okay, the female comes out and she would have punched Voldemort in the throat. You know what I'm saying? Like, this, we don't do what are classic lady face style subplots, if that makes any sense. We do, it's a lady, but she has a lot of male subplots, or like male coded subplots of beating everybody's ass. I think the most famous one with the female main character is Azaran Teeler, and that one sells gangbusters. Everybody and their mother loves that one, and supposedly she's a healer, But in reality, she's a fucking boxer who just heals herself through all the damage and boxes everybody in the face. And also, she's a lesbian. So, but that is the kind of stuff that like the reader base wants. They want a badass main character who comes in and does badass things. And John's correct. Being very smart or clever can make up for just being a badass with muscles the size of bowling balls. So if you've got somebody who can cleverly beat most people, and I've also seen a lot of books that use like cheats, or like the main character has some sort of special ability that nobody else has, and that's why he's a fucking beast. And people will accept that too. They love that as long as the main character is cool. Okay, if the main character is not cool, people will stop reading so fucking fast. And sometimes I feel like only because of our political landscape right now, where people just can't be not extreme, if this makes any sense. They also hate when main characters they'll use this term constantly. If your main character is a cuck, if he likes some lady and she's not reciprocating, what a POS this guy is. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to see this main character. People don't like that. So any form of like main character is not cool in some way turns people off really fast. Have you guys ever heard of solo leveling? Okay, I guess I would also say this is quintessential progression fantasy, like power fantasy. It's so popular, it's so huge. It was a book, it turned into a comic book, it turned into an anime. All three forms of solo leveling are like gangbusters, make so much money, it's outrageous. The book made so much money, it was outrageous. The comic made so much money, it was outrageous. The anime is currently #1 streaming on every fucking anime service. The main character has a cheat. He's in a world where not everybody, most people are born with a magical power, like they're the X-Men, right? His X-Men power is that he can just grow and get more power. He's the only one who has an X-Men power where he can just constantly level up and constantly get better. And every time he defeats something, he gets more experience points and he levels up and he's just getting stronger and stronger, where everybody else just have a static power. Like they just have this one thing they do. He shoots lasers from his eyes, and this other guy's got storm powers. But main character, he just fucking levels up and gets stronger and stronger, and now he can jump to the top of a fucking skyscraper and punch a guy to death because he's just that strong and he's just got that many stats. And so the main character is just cool. Like, he lives in a world where nobody else can level up, but he can level up. And that just makes him a cool guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, that just makes him like the coolest thing ever. And I think a lot of it comes down to the escapist of fantasy of being like, I wish I was that main character. Like, that kind of mentality. So you never want your main character to be so uncool that the reader would think, I don't want to be this guy. You know what I'm saying?
And I will say that the genre is pretty heavily male coded in general. And the deeper you go, usually the higher it gets. Like if you're talking progression fantasy, depending on which source you're looking at, anywhere from about 67 to 80%. I know that's pretty different, but is male. If you're looking at LitRPG, it's generally thought to be between about 85 and 90. By the time you get to Dungeon Core, I've seen numbers anywhere from about 99 to 97 to 99% male audience, and it is something you really have to keep in mind. I'm not trying to be negative or anything. I mean, people like what they like, and I'm fine with that. Frankly, most romance novels, if you really look at it, treat men like they're the most retarded things in existence. Supposedly 200 IQ billionaire suddenly falls attracted to random, who even knows who she is, lady, and gives up his entire life and destroys everything he ever built in order to win her affections. It's extremely insulting to men if you actually think about it. But I do think that the extreme male coding of LitRPG has an occasional flip side to that. Probably my second most popular series, the one I think I'm probably most known for at this point, is Demon Card Enforcer. And when I did the first book, the female character, the sort of number 2 character of the series, the main male character was winning her affection by helping her brother out, and he was a complete dick that always backtalked and did what the main character didn't say and whatever. And people got extremely upset and called him a cuck and a simp and all these kinds of things because how dare he, like, you know, keep trying to rescue the stupid guy, and this bitch was just using him and all this kind of stuff. Like, I got those comments constantly. Okay, now I personally prefer, just as sort of a personal preference, that my characters have to work hard to win their women, but that's apparently no longer acceptable. So I removed a significant portion of that storyline and re-released the book after. That was the main rewrite. It was about a 40,000 word rewrite. And when I re-released the book, it did wildly better. And the only significant change was removing the subplot where he's winning the woman's affection by dealing with her basically criminal douchewagon brother and trying to save him. Simply removing that was enough to drive it from very mid-tier to extremely successful on the Royal Road where it initially launched. So you could definitely get in trouble if you ignore certain expectations. And there are, you know, I mean, you understand. There's things.
Wish fulfillment is a big piece of it. We talked to Heather Hollow about that. She talked about in Harem Lit, if they even make a joke about one of the girls being interested in another male, her readers freak out. Like, they cannot be even, like, as a joke, unfaithful at all. So it sounds very similar as far as like fan expectations.
Yeah, although this is going to sound weird, but I actually always have found male harem writing to be like weirdly uplifting.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's going to sound super strange. Shami made a comic about it that's been doing the rounds on the internet like wildly. But male harem writing can be summed up with, I want to be the best guy ever, become really cool, take care of you so much, and be like the best man you've ever met in your entire life. But I want to do it for a lot of women.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally freaking male harem stories. Like, the guys are never like abusive. They like earn a whole bunch of stuff. They just shower the women with all kinds of things and like make them so cool and all this, and like give them like practically everything. And the only thing they want in return is many women. Like, that's their entire, like, that's the whole thing. They don't even exist for themselves to a certain degree. I know that sounds like weird, but most of the stories, like, maybe the guy had a plan or something like that, but he basically just exists to take care of all of his women now. But it's all of his women. That's the entire fantasy. All of his women. Like, that's it.
That was what Heather was saying, was that in a lot of, I think, her Titan Mage books, every book is like the hero focusing mainly on one of the girls and like helping her to solve a problem. So they're working together, but also there's all of these other girls, and she uses it to kind of highlight the different relationships, I guess. I've read some of her short stories, but I haven't read Titan Mage, so I can only speak to the conversation that we had.
Well, Haley, since we've taken a ton of their time already, and they've been super gracious with their time with us, do you have any other questions, final questions you want to ask? Turn this into a 3-parter.
I think, unless Shami wants to go into her comic and talk about tropes and other things, which we absolutely don't have to. In the future, I would love to bring you guys on to talk about Royal Road, actually. But that is, I think, a whole other conversation.
Well, I think I'm really good at Railroad at this point.
Yeah.
I have run 4 stories up it. Every one of them has made the front page of Rising Stars. I think I have the Railroad thing down, so I can definitely do that with you.
Oh, for sure. For sure. We'll bring you back on just to talk Railroad, and I'm sure that's a whole hour-long episode in and of itself.
Yeah.
Well, my comic doesn't really need much explanation. It was literally just a funny observation that I had after reading 2 different romance books. One, a romance book for women, and then one romance book for men. And with both of them, mind you, I should say read as in big fat quotes, because I read halfway through and I got bored with both of these types of books. But it was just a funny observation, because the female one was about, and I'm not even joking you, the female one is about a lady who picks up a serial murderer who escaped from prison, and the serial murderer gets into her car, and then the rest of the story is just serial murderer threatening to kill her unless she does exactly what he says. which is take them to a bunch of places, get some fake ID, take them out of the state, all this other kind of stuff, but then also just sexually assaulting her the whole time, so in my humble opinion, like the rapiest of all rape fantasies. Now, I'm not saying, you might be like, Shami, isn't that bad? I'm not actually saying it was bad. It was pretty well written. I can understand why people would theoretically like it. It actually hit all the tropes of romance because the lady had an abusive husband, and the abusive husband was hunting her down and he was going to kill her. But now she has a serial murderer on her team who actually likes her. And when the husband finally catches up, that serial murderer is going to kick that guy's ass. And so I'm like, okay, I got it. This is a romance book where you fall in love with the fucking serial murderer. And I'm like, okay. But it was still basically like, and then I'm going to kill you constantly. But I guess she's falling in love with this guy, which is funny.
It's the subgenre of the subgenre of the subgenre.
Yeah. And then it was the harem stuff, because everybody and their mother is like, dude, this harem stuff is exploding. And just like John said, the harem stuff is guys who are like, wow, I can't wait to have all the ladies, where I take care of all the ladies and give them everything they ever want for their, loving, adoring faces. And the only reason it is funny, the only reason I even drew a comic, is because I feel like the normal perception is that women's romance is Hallmark stuff. You know what I'm saying? The Notebook. Very like, and then we're all staring at each other with hearts in our eyes. And the perception is that men watch disgusting, gross pornography that's degrading to women, and they hate women. And, if there's going to be men's romance, they're just beating women, like that kind of thing. So when it was the opposite, when I read it and I was like, wow, the female romance is a little problematic. And the male romance was, I guess, quote unquote, gross from a harem standpoint, because he just collects a lot of ladies, but is otherwise very wholesome. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not hurting them. He's not treating them badly. He doesn't speak about them derogatorily. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's funny. And then I wrote that in a little comic, and I was like, tee hee. and apparently the wrong people got a hold of it, because it got into like extremist camps, like misogynists and misandrists, both, like people who hate fucking men and people who hate women, and they were arguing about it. And then they were saying that a man must have drawn the comic because they clearly hated women. And that, maybe my mistake was entering the chat at that point to be like, guys, actually I'm a woman, because then everybody and their mother lost their mind, and they were like, how dare you must be secretly a misogynist. And I'm like, it's just a joke. You need to calm the hell down. And they were like, you can't say it's a joke when you've done something so terrible. And I'm just like,
yeah, we found 4 or 5 threads that have added up to like 25 million views. It's got like YouTube videos about it now, like plural, at least 2. Like, it showed up on Reddit at like multiple places. Like, it's just exploded across the entire freaking internet. Everybody's super upset about like that tiny little joke that's super barely anything.
Shami's
have
LitRPG
handled it
sales
so
went up.
well. Yeah, did your sales go up? That's the real question.
oh no, not even a little. My sales didn't go down. My sales didn't go up. The thing is, most people don't understand it's about books, and most people don't understand that I'm an author first, and that I just draw these stupid little comics as like for funsies. You know what I'm saying? Everybody thought I was a webcomic artist. They kept talking about how I'm a webcomic artist, and I'm like, I'm not a webcomic artist. I just do stupid doodles to be funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, stupid observations. A lot of people were demanding I apologize for it, and I was like, I'm not going to apologize for it. I feel weird. I feel like the comic is milquetoast, because it's just true. Like, I just stated some truths, and then I walked away, and some people are like, you need to apologize. And I'm like, apologize for what? Fucking using my eyeballs? Like, making some observations? Like, what do you want me to apologize for? Yeah. Well, how come you're not harassing the author who wrote it? Because they were saying I was a misogynist for showing a lady being choked and some guy threatening to kill her. And I was like, dude, I didn't write that book. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's wrong with you guys?
She wishes she did. It made millions of dollars.
Right?
Dude, it's a crazy bestseller, that book, by the way. Tons of money it has made. And so it's just, it was very weird because I feel like the reactions to it were borderline insane. You know what I'm saying? Like I said earlier, I feel like we can't live in a world of non-extremes. Like apparently two groups of extremists found my stupid comic and then started fighting angrily over it like it was the end all be all. And I'm like, what's wrong with you guys?
But the best part of this entire thing is that she put it out under my top 10 comics that have caused controversy, basically. And that's when they found it and went viral. Like that was, they sucked it down from my top 10 comics that have caused somebody to be mad. And almost, and so many people on that main line were like, these don't seem that bad. And then somebody just went insane. The whole internet blew up. It was almost like perfect.
Yeah, it's just not, it's almost not even worth talking about because it was so milquetoast. It's really only other people's reactions to it that I find funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, but again, I feel like people just don't know that that I'm mostly just an author. Like, I don't think they care that I write books. My book sales didn't go up crazy. My book sales didn't go down crazy. You know, like people boycotting me or something like that. No, it was just people just wanted to discuss whether or not women read dark romances. Or people just wanted to scream about how men read worse stuff than women. Therefore, I shouldn't have ever made this comic because I should have written about how awful men were. And there was a piece of me that was like, guys, it was just an observation for funsies. Please stop reading into this.
And now Shami's got to get into webcomics so that way she can sell all of them. And off the back of this controversy, sorry for those of you who are reading Time Locked Warlock, and you're expecting another book. She's got to switch gears.
Yeah. I think if I had been a webcomic artist, I think I would have exploded a little bit online in terms of like people looking at my webcomic and all. And I feel like if I had purely done edgy webcomics, then I might have gotten a huge fan following suddenly from this. But you guys have seen my comics. Most of my comics are even more milquetoast than this one. They're mostly just funny author jokes about how, you know, writing every day today. So I feel like the people were a little disappointed, actually. Like they saw my comic and they were like, whoa, you're a webcomic artist and you do crazy edgy stuff. I can't wait to read it. And I was like, here's one of them. And they're like, oh.
Here's my comic about cats.
Yeah, and then they kind of just wandered away. Like for the most part, it's basically completely dead. Or if people are talking about it, they only want to discuss the comic. They have absolutely no interest in me or whatever I was doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think I said it wrong. Time marked Warlock, not locked. I words every once in a while. I can words good.
It's okay. It happens to the best of us.
We words real good.
Yeah. All right. As much as I really want to continue down this webcomic discussion, because I love Shami's comics, all of them. I am not here just for the controversial ones. All of them are awesome and funny. And as much as like we could probably just sit here and talk about board gaming with you guys or gaming in general, we'll cut you guys loose, unchain you from your shackles that we've put on you to come do this interview. And now that we've fooled you into answering all of our questions so we can break into Progression Fantasy, we hope that some of the audience in Worlds of Thunder has learned something. If you haven't, that's your own fault. These guys are a fountain of knowledge. Haley, you got any final things to add?
Go read their books, and I will link all of the things in the show notes. So they will be easy to find.
Yeah. So I know, Shami, I don't know what you have coming out next, but John, I know you've got a Demon Card Enforcer book. By the time this comes out, it will already be out. But you have one coming out, and this kind of dates when we're recording this, coming out March 19th.
Correct. I think Time Marked Warlock's going to come out about the same time.
Yeah, Time Marked Warlock 3, which is called 24-Hour Warlock, will be coming out like mid-March.
So we'll make sure we get the links to those so people can check those series out for sure.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and for anybody who's listening, whether you're an author who loves to read and you want to get into reading, a big part of like learning some of the tropes of progression fantasy and lit RPG is reading this stuff. Like we'll definitely have those links available for you so you guys can read from the guys who are doing it and doing it well. But yeah. Where can people find you guys next? I know we're planning on meeting up at LitRPG Con in July. But is there anything prior to that anybody out there, if they want to approach you with questions or just say hello, they can find you?
I have every social media that you can possibly have a social media. I'm not as active on all of them because I keep forgetting that the other ones don't exist occasionally. But it's technically all there. I have a website. I have an email that I've listed on my website if you want to get a hold of me directly. You can find my books anywhere books are sold, so I'm pretty easy to get a hold of, and I have a pretty unique name, so it's pretty easy to find me.
I think we're going to be at LibertyCon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we will be.
Awesome. Cool.
We already have our tickets and our plane flight and all that, so we'll probably see you if you are going to LibertyCon, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We will be there.
Yeah.
So we'll see you at LibertyCon in June, and then we'll see you at LitRPG Con in July, so that'll be fun. Whoa.
And then Dragon Con, question mark?
No.
Not this year? Okay.
Mm-mm. I was invited as a guest, but I'm going to have to decline.
That's unfortunate. That's all right. We will. We are getting to spend a lot of the summer with you guys though, so we're excited about that. Gearing up for that. Yeah, definitely we'll have all the links for their socials, everything on our show notes as per usual because Haley's awesome like that and she makes that stuff happen. Thank you again to Shami and John Stovall. Thank you both for giving us a tremendous amount of your time. We love hanging out with you guys. We love talking with you guys. And now everybody else gets to understand why. So thank you also to you listeners out there, Worlds Asunder, those of you who are following our podcast on world building. We hope you enjoyed it. And we will catch you next week. And that was part 3 of Shami and John Stovall talking about progression fantasy and LitRPG web comics and I guess the downfall of making jokes at the expense of other genres. Big takeaway there is if you're gonna get on board or angry at something or you want to react to something, make sure you know what it's talking about. I wouldn't bother disagreeing with the author because they knew what they meant more than you did. But on this flip side, it did give Shami some spotlight. As always, if you want to go find their links, go check them out. We have them in the show notes, including links to Shami's webcomics. Next week, we're going to go back to the beginning and reproduce the one where we started, part 1. That'll be with our publisher, Chris Kennedy. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and do your best to blast the noise out wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, thanks for helping us tear the worlds asunder. We'll see you next time.